One sidebar note before I get going. I do work for Microsoft, but when I do webinars like this and other presentations outside the company, all opinions expressed are my own and don't represent Microsoft the corporation, its partners, or subsidiaries. Just out there. Okay. Taking the time and dialing in this morning. I really wanted to take on a topic which is a little less technical for the software architecture world, but really close to my heart. Software development has for a very long time been a thing of structure. And software architecture is, we really talk about it like engine math, and it's a very intellectual affair. It's about precision and puzzle solving. And it has a lot of, theoretically, black and white parts. The things we do have solutions, and we try to solutions to make them happen. All of that is largely rooted in our past. You know, we grew up where software and hardware were really tightly bound together. We worked at the chip level, we worked in assembler. And we made things happen in a 1 and 0 way. It was science and it's logic. And it was, again, very clear. At that time, and if you could see me, you'd see the gray in my beard, art was really a folly of engineering. It wasn't something you went after. It was precision. It was control. But as it turns out, I do firmly believe that there is art in software, that there is an aesthetic to it, that things can be done in a way that are unique, even though we solve the same problems. Artful, and it can really be subject to critique. Now, I spent a lot of time working with a lot of organizations, and the most common question I get is, can you review or assess our architecture? And the problem is, generally, you can't, because the architecture is ill-defined or unclear. Reasons behind the choices we make and the things that we do. It hasn't always been like this. I mean, the nature of software started out, well, let's face it, kind of cold. Together applications because we could. We used interfaces that represented the paper, that people opportunity and options, but it was kind of ugly. We looked at software as a capability, something you could do in the real world that we could replicate inside the system, couldn't do in the real world that we could provide to you in a new way, without artfulness. It wasn't about clarity. The most is the screen you're seeing is a current application. And it's running, it's complicated, and it's generally hated. It does what it needs, but we can do better. My personal favorite example, the lowly grocery store scanner. To me, this is some beautiful software. This is software that is based on the idea that what people do is the important part of the system, not the system itself. A long time ago, there actually was a cashier in a grocery store. And it was in South Philadelphia. It was a little bit of a rough neighborhood. I actually stood inside a metal cage. People would push their groceries through the little slot. I would look at a printed label that had been stuck by an individual on an item and enter that number into the cash register, hit move to the next, and repeat. Good system. It worked. Transactions occurred. People got their groceries. But it was a little bit riddled with error. Sometimes the labels weren't right. Sometimes the labels had been replaced. Sometimes I made mistakes in the key punch. Either way, we could do better. Came along, and first it did a one-to-one replacement. We started to take that manual system and created a point-of-sale system. And it provided me, the cashier, some kind of feedback. I would look at a can of mayonnaise. If I entered a number and it didn't say mayonnaise, I knew there was a mistake. I could go through and change that. Time that evolved to effectively eliminate the key punch altogether. The barcodes and the standards, they came together to provide all the data detail without the human interaction. The human was there just to complete the transaction and have contact with the customer. A lot of these places, we've even eliminated the human. The software and the hardware have provided this But they've done much, much more than that. And not only is it more accurate, it's faster. Faster for the consumer. So the experience of getting in and out of the grocery store is improved. It also improves the experience of the grocery store administration. They get back office detail and data warehousing, which allows them to do better stock management. And it's this invisible thing, this thing that really doesn't have any place to people, but this is software with elegance. Before, our software development and our software architecture is going through a bit of a renaissance. Time of the art renaissance, the big shift was a move from individual artisans to artisans with patrons. And those patrons would provide the funding to do these fairly large, complex, sometimes monolithic projects that would span years, if not generations. Art improved because of it. Now you could have master craftsmen employ apprentices. You could have teams of people working together to do these big things because they were basically funded. This ended up in the paintings. Go and look at Renaissance period art. You'll see odd figures added to pictures of Madonna and Child. They're sort of unknown unless you realize who paid for it. It turns out that that's a little portrait of themselves buried inside their artwork. This of ongoing evolution, funded and scaling up, got better and better all the time. Patients of the people who were funding it, they sped up too. We've gone through several generations of software consumers. We had people who initially were just kind of amazed we could do anything on a computer. We could come up and say, look at this trick, and they went, great, that's awesome, let's do it again. Generation of, I see what you're doing, let me automate that. We can be more effective, maybe more efficient. That was great, they liked it, they paid us, we did it again. We've entered an era where the consumer is coming to us saying, I have a business. We do this elaborate thing. How can you help me? And we are largely stepping up to meet those goals. We come up with good ideas. We look at the scope of things. We make decisions. But the next round is going to be worse. The next round, and we're already starting to see some of it, our patrons, our customers, have ideas that we can barely create. This dates back a long time. I know in the 70s I was promised a flying car and a robot who would clean my house. We never really got there. There's some prototypes out there, but it hasn't really been achieved. People have for a very long time had ideas that are good ideas that we never really get to. The expectations that they have are exceeding our ability to deliver. But like in the Renaissance, one of the ways we get past this, one of the ways we improve, is by spreading the work of master artisans. The artists have already done this. There's a trail blazed for us. We have a path to follow. Master craftsmen who can turn solid stone into looking like it's transparent. Or one of my favorites is the photo in the lower right. It's not a photograph. It's actually an oil painting. It's an oil painting that's so photorealistic it could fool pretty much everybody. The craftsmen who do this take on apprentices, but it's not